right, good morning everyone. Welcome, thanks for joining us here. Thank you for joining us on the last day of Ignite, braving the snow and the wind and anything else you had to in order to get here this early. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone who's joining us online through our streaming of this session as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed everything this week here at Ignite. It's actually my first Ignite. I'm fairly new to Microsoft. This has been a great new experience for me. But I hope you've enjoyed seeing all the new products and services that are coming out, all the new things across our portfolio, whether it's for developers or data, AI, any of the application services. Today, we're going to really focus in on a very specific area around app modernization. And we're going to focus in on 4 of our very loyal customers who have done some great work together. And we're going to really dig into the kinds of challenges and things that they experience going through their modernization effort. And the goal of this session is really to share as much information with all of you. And I hope all of you walk away having learned something from the kinds of things that they've experienced and things that you can apply into your own business. So with that as an introduction, I'd like to invite up my 4 panelists. So please come on stage. We have a great representation here. From Chevron Phillps, from Ernst & Young, London Stock Exchange, and PayChex. So please welcome Melba, Sandeep, Abhay, and John. Thank you. All right, thanks everyone. So, there's really nothing better than learning from each other. I think it's great to look at new technology and all of that. It can often be really exciting to see what's coming down the road. But all of you have really lived this experience. And so for everyone in the audience, everyone joining us online, this is really an opportunity to really walk away with some new information and having be a little bit smarter about some of the challenges that they may see that are really similar to yours. So with that, why don't we just go down the row here and just do a real quick introduction. Please introduce yourself and a little bit about what your role is at your organization.
Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here. I'm Melba Swapna. I am a cloud architect manager at Chevron Phillps Chemical.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sandeep Sahasrabudhe. I worked with Ernst & Young and as a lead architect, and I head one of the largest platforms that is used to perform the audits in Ernst & Young.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abhay. I run analytics engineering at the London Stock Exchange Group, or LSEG. And thank you for inviting me. And what we do predominantly is the London Stock Exchange, while we host the stock exchange, is a lot more than that. We power probably some of the largest financial services. We serve financial companies with data and analytics. And as part of my role, we build regression models, stochastic models that power capital markets.
Great. John?
Hello, excuse me. Hello, everyone. I'm John Lolis. I'm with PayChex. I am a manager of engineering.
Great, perfect. So we're just going to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you might have seen as you've been going through some of your more recent modernization effort. And so why don't we just kind of, again, go down the route. So, Melba, talk a little bit around some of the things that you experienced that I think would be beneficial for the audience to know about things you experienced and how you overcame them.
Absolutely. The challenges that I would focus on 3 areas here. One is security. Mm-hmm. How would you bring confidence in your business owners, trust and confidence with them, and then ask them to trust you while you have to protect your intellectual property too? That was a big challenge for us because we had to build the platform with that security. And Microsoft did make it easy for us. We use most of our platforms on private endpoints, and the data stays in our tenant. So that was one other thing. And the second one was domain expertise, right? You have a solution. How would you get to deliver that? That was a big challenge, right? And if you look at the innovation, we did speed to market, right? And we did not want to miss that opportunity, the innovation opportunity, not a bit, because we wanted to enable our data science folks and data folks to give that enabled secure platform for them to go and build it. So the third one is, I would say, adoption and the research material you have. Literally, it is analysis paralysis. It's like an overload of information. You have millions of tools to be used. And how would you train your folks to get there? Every minute you have things changing in technology. So we need to train and then build that expertise in-house also.
So interesting, because what I'm hearing out of that is that this need to move fast, but also this need to have confidence in what you're doing. That combination of speed and confidence is a real challenging tension to have, whether it's something new or, in this case, a modernization effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sandeep?
Sure. So just to give some background about our application, means we started developing the application maybe 12 years back, when some of the technologies like Web API, some of those are emerging technologies at that time, but we decided to go with the latest technologies at that time. And then as the time progressed, Azure came up well, we decided to migrate to Azure. So that was the first step of our modernization journey. And we decided to go small because we know our application was huge. Just to tell you the scale of the application, we deployed in 27 countries in different data centers. And the challenge was how we should start the migration process. So we started with small services like Azure AD or Entra now we call it. So we started with that. We started with using things like Azure Service Bus, which in turn helped us in migrating a lot of things to the cloud. And the biggest challenge when we moved to cloud was we have a huge data in petabytes, because it's all related to the documents, and we use on-premise SQL Server to store those documents. One of the challenges was how we should migrate those documents, because there was no easy way to migrate all these documents to the cloud. So we decided to take advantage of organic migration process, where we said that we'll support both the locations, cloud as well as on-prem. So for the end user, it will be, she will not know from where the document is getting downloaded. But when we upload the document, it will always go to cloud. And that's how maybe over a couple of months, we were able to migrate all the documents to the cloud, which was another interesting thing. And the other challenge we had was we had a big team, say 200 plus developers who work on this application. And we don't want them to get impacted because of this journey of migrating to cloud. So there were differences, and one good decision we took at that time was we wanted to use all the PaaS services from Azure. So it could be the storage, it could be the web apps, it could be a lot of processing done on the Azure Functions, durable functions. So there are differences how you deploy it in Azure and how those things run on-prem. For example, we have IaaS servers on-prem, where in Azure we have web apps. We have functions there where we run it as services on-premise. So we need to make a lot of changes, but we wanted to make sure it's a single code base, so for developers, it will not get impacted. But then we use some good design patterns, practices, some dependency injection, where at runtime we decide what to use for making those calls. So it worked out very well, and that helped us a lot.
All right, thank you, Sandeep. Abhay?
Yeah, so at LSEG, one of the things is we power most of the financial services, and it's a profitable business, but what comes at the cost of that is we have a very large technology estate that's fragmented, and we wanted a partner to be able to take that and transform into the next generation stack. We also have a lot of customers who are also on their cloud migration journey. And so we partnered with Microsoft to figure out, the division I work for, data and analytics, to figure out how can we take this wide disparate estate and see whether we could deliver to customers faster. Because the cost of like getting a new feature or the cost of doing something new ends up, we ended up spending more time on our stack than we probably want to. So with Microsoft, what we're doing is we're going through our application estate, we're going through our data estate, and trying to see which tool serves best. And assuming our data platform sort of moves into Azure, we then have to decide where do the models sit. And one of the key challenges was making sure that the models are very close to the data. And that meant re-architecting in some points to be able to use, like to what he said, to use PaaS services offered by Azure. And it's been pretty successful so far. We're not done yet.
Yeah.
It's a 10-year journey with Microsoft, so you can look at the extent of the commitment. And yeah, but so far it's been doing very well.
And it's always the need of the application that dictates it, right? It's always, no matter what your architecture is or what your decisions are,
Correct.
the needs of the app are really
The needs of the customer and the needs of the app.
That's
Correct.
right. Yeah. Great. Great. John, why don't you round it up?
Sure. Excuse me. So I was hearing some similar themes here. So some of the two of the big themes I saw during this process was around technology. When we were going through the app modernization process, we were bringing in new technology, or we were using existing technology in new ways. Mm-hmm. While it may sound obvious, taking the time to learn it and then leveraging the partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft brought in a lot of experts, global black belts, lots of training, lots of conversations around, are the technology choices we're making the right choices? And that partnership really, I think, paid off. So spend the time learning. The other one in our app modernization process was we didn't do a complete rewrite. It was a specific section or component of our application. We wanted scalability for the future. Our application's scalable, but we really wanted to be ready for what's coming next. In this area, a number of engineers, hi Ben, they warned us the interconnection between the systems was going to be complex. And I had a number of engineers come to me and say, I don't understand how this is going to work. We spent time working on it. They spent a lot of time researching it and POCing it. In hindsight, I actually wish we spent even more time on this aspect of it. So my advice here would be, if you're connecting to legacy systems, really make that part of your design up front. It's not an implementation detail.
Interesting. Great. So, we're talking a lot about app modernization. For some of us, that modernization is also tied into AI initiatives. So, Melba, I think you have some interesting things going on the AI side as well. Do you want to just touch on that for a quick second?
Absolutely. There are a lot of projects which is coming in more focused on AI, and the technology is just changing too so fast. So some of the, one thing I would advise is giving the right tools for the right team of folks. Right? Our data science folks wanted to see data visualization as interactive, the data comes in. So some of the open sources like Plotly and Dash was also adapted from us, right? And then once they do the innovation, POC, and all those things, we, on parallel, we start building it on a productionized scale also. So those are some of the things I could share.
Great, great. And Abhay, I think similar for you, you have this interesting kind of intersection between AI and some of the other efforts you have underway.
Yeah, that's, I represent analytics, and we've been doing machine learning for a long time. And what we found is that with the advent of LLMs is there's a lot of stuff where you do not need to have a long training cycle. So you have a document corpus, you need to train it, and then you sort of release a model to production. Large language models have really, really impressed us in that speed. So one of the things we do is, for example, if you look at, we serve our clients who might want to know what's happening with Microsoft. And that involves the news from Microsoft, the board of directors, your tradable bonds, what's your stock price at, what research filings, what have you submitted. All of this we sort of summarize and we present to our customers. We've traditionally been doing this in terms of sourcing through hundreds of public websites. We gather all this information, and then we rationalize it and plug it into our databases of record. With the large language models, we are pretty confident that we can sort of shorten this training time and then be able to sort of source, extract, and feed into our databases of record. So that is something that is underway. And we're having quite a good experience with it, yeah.
Very cool. Great. Well, thank you. So with that as a foundation, we're actually going to dive deeper into each of your scenarios, take a little look at the architecture and the technical details of how you made this modernization effort a success. And in the end, we'll have time for some questions as well. So if there's anything here that catches your eye in terms of something that looks familiar or interesting that you might learn from, we have time at the end to talk to each of our panelists. So Melba, why don't you walk us through a little bit of what we're seeing here?
Yeah, this is a solution to solve multiple day-to-day work or a process. If there is a question asked the question is asked multiple times at the same level and the answer is going to be the same, that kind of not getting very deep into it, that is the solution we brought in. At Chevron Phillps, our data science was really focused on the innovation or solving that request or the problem statement for us. And we had very smart, a smart architect team where we had, while they were innovating, we were building the target architect for their application deployment and data and everything, security bundled up as a pattern for that. So if you look at this, one other thing you would see is we did not go with Kubernetes. There are other cases where we had used Kubernetes clusters. ACA, Azure Container Apps, fits really perfect, and it's so easy to deploy. It is underground, it is AKS mindset, right? But ACA gives the integration platform with the Entra or GitHub integration to bring the CI/CD pipeline code. Everything was seamless for us. So we could really, when I was telling Mike about speed to it, that's exactly what we picked the right tool so that we can deploy it and make the innovation get delivered as a production scale one. Yeah, we had separated, we had virtual networks, and like any other architect goes in, we do the same things. We use GitHub to do our CI/CD, and the security also. There was the images from ACA, the container images, to be scanned. We used multiple ones. We used Trivy, and then we used Azure Native Cloud Defender also. And then in-house, we had Wiz, and we were trying to, because this is one of the first solutions we are trying to productionize, we wanted to see what are we missing in these tools for scanning. So those are some of the integration and architect we had decided.
That's great, great. So we can see where your decision points around speed, but also enterprise reliability and security, that really factored into your tool selection here.
Very much.
Great, great. Well, thanks, Melba. All right, let's talk a little bit about, Sandeep, what you did at Ernst & Young.
Sure. So yeah, our solution is more of a audit tool where almost 100,000 users use it every day to capture the things as part of their day-to-day work. And the scale is huge. The challenge for us was the scalability. And in some of the busiest data centers, we do document processing, and users upload 500,000 documents every day. And those documents go through the processing stages through the application. And ultimately, they go into the blob storage. Similarly, some of the things like during the busy peak times, during a day, users make almost 3 million calls every hour. And the application needs to support all that without any downtime is a big challenge for us. And the thing is, we decided to go with PaaS. We started with app service environments, Azure Web Apps, and we were able to scale out as well as scale up when necessary. That was a good advantage we got when we migrated to Azure. The reason being, during this audit process, what happens is there are 3 months time where you need 150% of the capacity, and then we need to scale it down to our 100% capacity because some periods are busy times for audit. So we were easily able to do that with the click of a button. We were able to scale out. Even we were able to go up to the higher SKUs, which actually helped us a lot in this journey when we started using some of these Azure services. And along with that, in our architecture, we almost use majority of the Azure PaaS services in our application. It could be Windows Service Bus, it could be Event Grid, it could be Cosmos DB, or we use Entra as well. So even we use Microsoft Information Protection in some of the scenarios. So it's a big application which consists of all these things. But overall, it worked well, and now we are in a journey of containerization where we are going to use Azure Container Apps. And using that, now we started the process of now we are deploying that into production and making it productionized. So
Great.
it's really helping us in the overall journey.
Great, thank you, Sandeep. Thank you. All right, Abhay, let's talk a little bit around London Stock Exchange. Really excited to see what you guys are doing here.
Sure. So so what we do, so this specific example is around what we call quantitative pricing services, where what we need to do is, given any tradable security, at time now, at T0, we need to see what the price of that security will be going forward up until the time it matures. And what we need to do is we need to be able to take in various information like market data and then be able to price it as fast as possible. We have to be close to the data, and we need to be able to make sure we are secure, because a lot of our clients use this and they use it at scale. And in certain, even when I say scale and timing, it's about, we do about more than 250 million calcs a day. We have latency where anywhere from tens of milliseconds to maybe 2 or 3 seconds, because if you've ever seen CNBC and the ticker at the bottom, right, that's your stock price, but we do derivations on that stock price and publish it out to clients. We have to be very close to exchanges. So we looked at Azure, we looked at what was given there, and we have and I'll walk through one of the use cases, but Azure Container Apps, to your point, fit the bill really well, because we have microservices, they're containerized, and we can scale up and down based on client demand coming in or based on our SLAs that we need. And ACA really fits the bill very nicely, because it's, again, to your point, it ties in with the rest of the system, with authentication, with monitoring, trying to handle concurrency. We also thought about AKS, but I think we didn't want to go to that bridge, because ACA fit the bill very well. If you go to the next slide, yep. It's basically, if you look at this, it's a simple thing of like you have jobs coming in, and they can be spiky, they can come in at various pre-market open, during market, or at close of market. There'll be spikes, or there'll be constant streams coming in. So what we do in the back is we dequeue, and then we have these hundreds of microservices that just scale out and be able to perform the calc and then push it back out. As ACA fit the bill, we are able to use I think you call it Flex now. I keep having to figure out the naming, but yeah, Flex works very well, and we worked with Microsoft to sort of migrate this to the cloud, and it worked very well in Azure.
You know, what's so interesting about all of you is you're really talking about technical challenges, but you're also talking about challenges around skills, executive confidence, regulation, user experience, and all of these are factoring into your decision points. I think it's just so interesting when we think about all the things you had to consider in your architecture. Some of it's the technology, but many other things are about how that relates to the rest of your business or your teams. John, why don't you wrap up?
So I think you're going to see similar themes here.
Yeah. Great.
Like I said, with our app modernization process, we were focused on a component. We were looking for that scalability in the future. There are many other goals, but I think a good secondary goal here is our developer productivity or developer efficiency. So we want to scale to meet our client demand, but can we also help make our developers more efficient? To make our decisions, we also looked at our history. The division I'm part of has effectively always used .NET. They've effectively always used C#, and they've effectively always been on Azure. This stack works for us. Our people are very skilled in it. We've been very successful in it. There's no real need to move from here. There's no strong demand. The next layer of this is PayChex has a very talented architecture team. They come with a lot of industry experience. They stay up to date on modern practices. And I think, as you heard everyone say, things like microservices, event-driven architectures, and containers, these are effectively industry best practices when you're trying to tackle some of these issues. From there, we looked at Azure itself. What does Azure offer that meets all of those needs and all of those goals? And you found things like Container, Azure Service Bus, Cosmos DB, Azure Functions, Azure DevOps, and other tools. The very next piece then is we wanted to not be experts in Kubernetes. And we know microservices are difficult. So we want to do as much as we could to make it easier for our developers. So we went with solutions like ACA. What are the managed solutions that help us deliver this functionality without us becoming in-house experts of Kubernetes? And then we also found technologies like Dapper. Are these tools allow us to use microservices ideally a little bit easier? So when you take all of this together, you put it together, and eventually you have a design. I think it's kind of an evolutionary design. There wasn't suddenly a revolution like, let's dump all of these things. It was, let's look at our existing stack. Let's see what value we're deriving today. Let's look at our goals, industry best practices, and let's arrive at the next solution. Spend some time POCing, and I think you have a good start.
That's great, great. Well, thank you all for diving into these stories and telling us a little bit around some of your decision points around all of your technology. Let's actually go back to a couple of questions, because I'm really curious to see, let's talk a little bit about outcomes. So you've gone through these processes, you've gone through your modernization effort. What sort of things are you now realizing in terms of benefits or outcomes from that effort? Melba, let's start with you.
Absolutely. We wanted the speed mattered for us, and the cost also, right? When we want to solve a problem at that speed, we don't want to take any technical debts, or we didn't want to, because it's huge. Our intellectual property lies on those security. So we had to really have two teams, the innovation team, the data science, enable them keep going with what they want to solve the problem. While that happens, we also had the target architect built out, so that when there is less time, and when you have already planned for a sustainable long-term plan, when you do that, that really reduces a lot of silly mistakes or anything going wrong in that. So that was one of the outcomes. We really said, if there is an innovation team, just get out of their way, let them do what they want to, but parallelly build this target architect, think long-term sustainable solutions for it. So that, even today, when there is a new product come in and we want it to be delivered in a week or a couple of days also with ACA and other things, we don't struggle, because we know we have done the pattern, the template secure, and have the confidence to deliver. Our data science can really deploy their code with that confidence. That is huge for us. Since we plan that target architect for DevOps, security, even we use automation infrastructure as code to deploy these platforms too. And then when you don't use it, we just tear it down, and then we respin it up. So those kind of cost effectives and the efficiency with the confidence really was the outcome we were able to do all this year to get there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great. Good to hear. Sandeep, similar question?
Means definitely a lot of advantages as we move to modernize the application and move to cloud. One of them is when we were on-premise, we used to have a disaster recovery site which is located at some different place. And we used to fail over sometimes in case of issues, or more for the regular DR exercises we used to conduct. It used to take hours, at least 3 to 4 hours for us to switch to the DR site. And mainly because somebody has to log into those machines, bring them up. We need to switch the DNS on those servers to point to the DR, which used to take few hours to replicate the DNS on all the machines. So what happened is, when we migrated to Azure, we got a good service, which is Azure Traffic Manager. And Traffic Manager, then we configured the profile in such a way that we can flip the DA to DR all those URLs in a minute's time. So the process which used to take hours earlier, we were able to do that in 8 minutes. And the other advantage because of Azure, when we migrated to cloud, was we were able to automate all these steps. So there was no manual intervention. Somebody can go and run the automation. It will do all the things magically. The big advantage was a lot of time was saved in this process. And our support and operations team, they got a confidence that they can switch to the DR as well as move back within 10 minutes. So really, it gave us a good confidence and overall business benefit doing those processes. And now we are on the journey to containerization, or we are already there using Azure Container Apps. We got a strange use case where our application is an audit application, so we have one version running of the application, and then we deploy the newer version of the application. So the use case was some users which are still conducting their audits, they wanted to run the older version, but then some of those who completed the audit wanted to migrate to the newer version. Mm-hmm. So we need to support two versions at the same time, and which was a hard thing to do. And when this Azure Container App came, we were able to run that blue-green at the same time, and we were able to route the traffic. Whoever is on the newer one, we route that traffic to the newer application version, and whoever wanted to continue on the old version, they still go to the old version. So with the revisions and with the labels concepts in the container apps worked very well for us, and we were able to resolve some of these complex use cases.
That's great. Thank you, Sandeep. Yeah. Abhay?
Yeah, from our side, so we have a large estate that is sort of disparate and fragmented. And what we realized was that there's a balance between trying to go fast in terms of let's migrate versus also taking a step back and saying which one of these is strategic. Because ultimately, the customer doesn't care where you are. They just want better service. They want it at a good point. They want reliability, security, all of those things, right? So it really helped us to go through this process of trying to understand which are our critical apps, which ones require either it's a re-platform or a rehost versus a re-architect or a refactor. So trying to bucket applications with their dependencies into a structured process that I think this migration journey has really helped us. The second point I'd say is that there's a school of thought that says, yes, we have to test it out and we have to prove it out. There's another school of thought that says, migrate and then try to figure it out, and I tend to lean towards the latter, because you can sort of keep thinking and suddenly a simple project becomes much longer and longer and longer, whereas it's much easier sometimes to sort of find the solution that works and then fix post that. Otherwise, you'll end up just delaying it for a long time. Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the key takeaways.
That kind of application assessment is so important, right? Because you can really look at your whole estate and start to see what's the right purpose for each application. Yeah. What does the future look like for them? You know, and sometimes it just means leaving them alone and keeping them where they are. Because you know that the future is just perfect in where they are and how they're architected. Yeah,
like some of our systems will probably, I mean, we're still working with cloud vendors, is we need to connect to exchanges, and we have such short windows. Some of them will be, we are next to the rack where the exchange is, with a dedicated cable with getting throughput, where we really have to do the calc and send it off as fast. Maybe that's not a cloud application, right? So you really have to think through your stack.
Yeah, and it really helps to line up the outcome or the value that you want to the application and the effort that you want to put into it as well. Yeah. So, yeah, great. All right, John.
Once again, similar themes. As I've been saying, some of the primary goals were around scaling, and we're seeing all positive signal that the scaling is going to work as expected. Yeah. We're also taking advantage of technologies like HADA, and we're scaling on demand. On the developer efficiency or productivity, on the container front, I was just having a conversation with an engineer saying, could we use these more for onboarding? Mm-hmm. An engineer joins a team, an engineer gets a new laptop. How can containers help on onboarding into that environment? Again, developer efficiency. The third one I think is the more interesting one. The developers, as they started working through this new domain with more focus on Azure DevOps, or code in Azure, or pipelines in Azure, a cloud native architecture, they started having new thoughts and new ideas on what could be possible. So they've recently started talking about, could we move to a more continuous deployment model, which I think is really interesting. The architecture is designed to solve a business need. The experience of the engineers are bringing new ideas to the table. So these are the kind of things I love.
That's great. Thank you all. Great. Well, we're actually going to open up to the floor for questions in just a minute. So, but maybe just while we get that ready and see if anyone has any questions for all of you. You know, if you just had to sort of summarize, you know, anything for anyone that is listening or watching, you know, what's the bit of advice that you would give them having gone through this process?
Speed matters, and do not get in the way of innovation, enable your folks, and empower your people also. That is one of the things. Technology, I think, will follow you. That's one of the major thing I learned in my experience, and that's exactly what I would say. Because team of people working together towards that goal is enormous. It's a game changer.
It's clear that managing the people side of this whole effort was really important for you and really one of the keys to your success.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, great. Sandeep, similar question?
Yeah, would echo with her, and don't wait till end. That's what I would like to say. Keep upgrading your technologies. For example, for us, we were on the classic .NET. We upgraded to .NET 3.1, then .NET 6, and as soon as .NET 8 came, we upgraded to .NET 8. So try to avoid technical debt and try to use all these modern technologies. Definitely it helps in long run.
Great, great.
For me, it's like sometimes migrations end up being technology-run projects, and that's it, and the business has no idea what's happening. I would say that the biggest thing to do is to make sure you bring the business along and clearly state what the value is for the customer. Otherwise, it just becomes like the side thing that engineering is doing, and that doesn't solve. Just saying we're moving to the cloud without defining why, you need to define the why very clearly.
It's very clear that the business drivers were core to all of your decisions and that you really had a good partnership with the business so that whatever you were delivering really met their expectations as well. So great, thank you. John?
I want to echo what you said on the people side. The core team of this, Carl and Ben and Ed and Greg and Kim and so many other people, these people, they're the ones delivering this solution. They have the expertise, they have the talent. If you trust your people, they're going to guide you in the right direction. The technology is going to follow. There's some obvious choices to make here. It's trust in your people.
Very good. Great, well, thank you all. I wanted to see if we had any questions, maybe online or from the room. And we do have a mic up here for anyone that wants to come up and ask that question. That makes sure that anyone that's watching the streaming version can hear. But 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝗀, I think we might have a question or two from the streaming audience. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. First of all, thank you for sharing all your insights. I'm 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝘀 Joshi. I'm moderating the chat online, and there are a couple of questions. Maybe we can begin there while the room lines up here. Okay, so the first one is, what were your doubts before modernizing your applications, and what made you decide to step forward and migrate?
I can take that.
All right. Jump in, Melba.
If I always talk about this from Houston, Texas, I tell people there, if you don't do it today, there is someone else going to do it tomorrow. So take the opportunity, right? Do not, previously doing an upgrade from .NET 3 to anything was like you had to lose your sleep, lose your lunch, dinner, and then go with that. But today it's not that way. It is so seamless. Adopt to that. Don't shy away from the change. Agile makes it more easy to deliver your ideas and solutions in pieces, right? You don't have to wait anymore for 3 months to 6 months for a solution to be delivered. You can deliver it every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So don't shy away from those things.
Well, that's a great answer. Anyone else want to jump in?
So something resonated with me. Actually, the last thing, or one of the last things that John said there earlier is, when you up-level the platform, it frees up people to think about new things and bring up different, higher value things to the business. Maybe you can all kind of bring up a very concrete example or something along those lines that was enabled by this up-leveling.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, Abhay.
Yeah, I can go first. So I am fortunate to lead a team of quantitative developers who prefer writing algorithms and not trying to figure out dependencies and getting stuff to run in production, etc. So it frees up a lot of them. There are automated pipelines. It's all containerized. You can deploy. You don't have to. There's enough code scanning at the beginning. It's linked to your pipeline. they can write a better algorithm than actually focus on our core competency. Like, I don't think we all signed up to be infrastructure experts. That's not our core competency. So yeah, I agree with what you said.
Yeah. Anyone else want to help answer that question? Anyone seen that same kind of ability to focus on different aspects of their business?
Absolutely. Means even for us, like I said, we have a big team, 200 plus developers, they work on the application. And they don't know where we deploy, how we deploy the application. We have 3 flavors running. One is on-premise, second is in the Azure App Service environment, and third is in the container apps. But it is all abstracted for them. They focus on writing their code where they wanted to do things. And it works very well.
Great.
Yeah, adds a lot of value.
Great.
I just wanted to say on that less a concrete example, one of my favorite things when I'm sitting in a one-on-one with somebody is they say, I have an idea. That means a new door has opened. So something, it might be a very challenging idea, but there's ideas, there's thoughts. They want to create change. They're motivated, they're passionate. So I love this too. This is one of my favorite things.
That's great. Thanks, John. All right, I think we have time for a few more questions.
Okay. So the next one online is, on stakeholder engagement, what tips or tricks do you have to help engage stakeholders, and what are prerequisites to be successful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abhay?
I think money is always a good yeah, look, we're in the business of making money, and you have to sell it not as, oh, this is stuff that we like doing and all. Yeah, all of that is good, but it's also about we can reach new markets, we can be more productive, we can scale, we have better coverage. That's how you get alignment. For me, migrations, etc., it's a technical benefit, but it has to drive sales, I think.
Building on that too, outside of saying, here's the business value. So like, here's where I'm going to deliver value. I think it's also having trust in the business, trust in the leadership. If you trust each other and they know you're making these technical choices, not because this is cool, shiny technology, but because this gets us to where we're going, that trust helps move those conversations forward. They might not understand the technology, but they trust you to make the right choices. Yeah. That gets us to the next point. It might not always be easy. It might be difficult conversations, but it helps us get there.
Well, I think all of you have done a good job of taking the technology and then sort of showing that you actually understand where the business needs to go. So you have the trust in making the technical choices, but you've also built that trust by showing that you understand what the business needs are and what their overall goals are. Melba, you've had to go through that, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the infrastructure as code, when we were building, we had to really think through, if you build this platform with all these pieces into it, we also added a cost for it, just to get an idea, right? So they would say, my value is going to be this many dollars. Would I have to really spend this to make it? So they back off and then they rethink, right? That's triggering you to think different too in that matter. So yeah, enabling them to see and continue with your stakeholders, have a continuous conversation, right? Don't shy away from those. Don't go back to them. Don't give them the feedback after 2 weeks. Just continuously collaborate with them, where now you have Office 365 and AI and everything merged. Just click a button and then it sends you what the update is to your stakeholders.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I have a quick question. I come from a platform engineering team, and we're trying to enable our developers to be able to, use the platforms, etc. How do you guys balance between giving them that innovation and freedom in the development space to kind of do things the way that they want to, versus keeping that operational supportability and scalability of the platform by having standardizations? Any tips or tricks that you can share?
We're big believers in patterns. So we have internal platform engineering teams that will look at the best patterns out there. There'll be a repository of that, and then devs can come in and then know that, yeah, I'm using this long-term support version of Docker. There's a Terraform script, there's a Docker file, there is a way to deploy. And that really helps because then they sort of know that they don't have to do everything from scratch. And it's safe because it's been scanned, it's been verified. So yeah, I think we typically use a lot of patterns.
Great.
To add to that, I see the pain, right? We, in another place, not in Chevron, we were able to do self-service. That's one of the things. We gave them a form to choose medium, low, like the processing, medium or high processing unit. Pick that, and then we were able to deliver the whole platform in like 18 minutes. Old days, when there is a request asked for a server creation, it takes weeks. And then we go back and say, oh, this is not what I asked. So continuous improvement there. And it is a culture change. You need your leaders to support that, asking, if you give the power to the developers do you need a function app? Build a pattern for them, and then track them. You can track them very well, what they're doing, and they themselves are able to say, okay, I'm using a function app for this solution, and the cost is really going up. Let me render it down. So those kind of thing, but it's a culture change too.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's hard, and whenever you do something new, there are going to be issues, but slowly, with the trust and confidence, you go on fixing those issues and things will sort out.
Great, everyone. I think we're just about out of time. Actually, do you want to ask one last question? Sorry. Yep.
It's a question for Sandeep. You talked about using this blue-green methodology to be able to manage versions for different people who want to do auditing and stuff. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how that works. How many versions do you actually support, for a start? And when do you decide, okay, we're not supporting that anymore, and how do you move people forward in that process?
How we do that is we support two versions. So one is the current working version, and when we release a newer version of the product, the current version is working, and then the newer version is there, which is the latest version. And how we manage it is we manage it from the back end, where we know from the client, we know whether this client needs to be on the older or on the newer version. So when client makes any call, at that time we store that somewhere in the database that this is a newer version. And based on that, we have the routing logic which will route all the calls to the newer version. So it is based on the client we decide whether it should go to the old or it should go to the newer version.
Great. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank you for your transparency and just the ability to walk through all of these different areas of things that you've seen, both in challenges and what made you successful. It's great to see how you've been driving alignment with your business stakeholders, with your developers, making really clear technology choices, and also building a foundation for where you want to go in the future so you can build off of that success for a long, long time. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to everyone in the audience and online. And I hope you all have a great rest of the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.